Welcome back, I'm Bill, and today we're going to talk about Rinnai lanterns. I've got two of them here. This is one that was sold in the Canadian market. This is one that was sold in the American market. They are basically the same. As far as I know, the guts and all the parts and everything are the same. For some reason they had slightly different model numbers in Canada, and I've got the instruction sheet or the owner's guide for the Canadian one, and it has model number label on the back. These were 60-9516. And for some reason in the US, they were, well, it's on this little sticker I put in here so it doesn't get lost. It was EKW 9516-A. And I think the 9516 is the key part of that model number. The first part of it might have something to do with whom they were selling it to or making it for. Dating these and figuring out exactly their provenance isn't the easiest thing in the world. When I made my stove video, I went based on some information that people were telling me. My Eaton stove, which was made by Rinnai, I bought supposedly from the original owner. That's what the guy claimed. And he said that he bought it in the mid-1970s. So I took his word, and I'm beginning to question that this fellow wasn't old enough to have bought it in the 60s. But I wonder if maybe his father was the original owner or something like that, because what I've been able to find in researching these is some information online quoting an employee from the Rinnai factory in the 60s who said that, and he worked on the assembly line for these, he said they were made only in 1963 and 1964. The Japanese market ones look just like this. They have a decal on the front that's kind of a distorted diamond shape with Rinnai and a cursive-like script. And then the valve knobs have Japanese on them, and they have an instruction decal on the back. Just like this, these are instructions for the pump. And the Japanese one have the same decal on the back, but in Japanese. It is kind of interesting that you've got an owner's guide which has instructions for everything, parts list, how to run and operate it. This says nothing about the quirky pump. The pump instructions are on a decal on the lantern. So the Japanese market ones look just like this, but with decals. The American market ones were actually sold through Montgomery Ward. And this doesn't, like, I can't find any residue or anything on here that would suggest it ever had a decal on it, but I think it must have. Montgomery Ward sold them, and they had a Hawthorne by Western Field, or Western Field by Hawthorne, something like that. I'll throw up an image of that on the front, and the same decal on the back. And the Canadian market, and Rinnai also made stoves for Montgomery Ward that I believe were in the same livery, the metallic blue. And I've been going through Montgomery Ward catalogs that I can find online, and up until, well, all through the 1960s, the Hawthorne or Western Field branded stoves from the design are clearly made by Thermos. In 1963, however, in the catalog, it shows the Rinnai stove made for them and refers to it as the budget stove. Which to me seems funny, because the Rinnai stoves, the build quality seems better than the Thermos ones, at least to me. But whatever the case, they introduced those in 1963, and they sold them as their budget stove along with items clearly made by Thermos up until the late 60s, so roughly 4 to 5 years selling those Rinnai stoves badged for Montgomery Ward. The lanterns, however, only show up in the 1965 catalog. So they don't seem to have been sold for very long unless they weren't in the catalogs. Maybe there was stock that hung around that was sold in the stores directly. I don't know. But in the catalogs, they show up in 1965 and only 1965. And as far as I know, they were never sold in the US apart from the ones made and badged for Montgomery Ward. Maybe the fact that this doesn't have any decals on it may be evidence that they were sold elsewhere, but I can't find any evidence of that. And I think someone just took the decals off, because I know it should have this on the back and it doesn't. Now, the Canadian market ones, the stoves seem to have been sold through Eaton's. and at one point they actually made branded stoves for Eaton that were in a special kind of a bluish green color, and they had in gold letters embossed on the front, Eaton's of Canada. Really nice stoves. They made a double and a triple burner. But there were also, I think before that, there were stoves, I've got them in my video on Rinnai stoves, that are in the same red and dark green livery. And those at the time I didn't know anything about. I'm starting to suspect that those may have been sold by Eaton's early, like the same time Montgomery Ward was selling these. And then later Rinnai started making badged stoves for Eaton's. But the lanterns disappear. And I suspect that may be because, as that fellow who worked on the assembly line said, they were only made in 1963, 1964. I would think he would know, so maybe they made them all for the North American market at that same time as well. So like I said, in the Montgomery Ward literature, they only show up in 65. So that's what I can figure out as far as dating goes. As far as the design goes, we'll see this as we get into them. It's basically a clone of AGM's double mantle lantern, like the 2572, which I think I've got videos on that. We'll look at the valves once we get in here. The only quirky thing on these is they have, some of the stuff in the valve is slightly different. The overall design is the same as AGM as far as I can tell. But Rinnai's got these funky pumps with these two parts here that required special instructions just on the lantern. As you unscrew it, this inner part, they call it the A button and the B button, come together, and you can pump it up, and then when you're done you push it in, and you're supposed to sort of separate these in order to screw it in. But I find what you do is you grab the inner part and you begin screwing it in with that. If you push it in on the outer part, it doesn't work very well, but you notice as I screw it in, they start to separate. And that's when it locks. I have no idea why they did that. I've looked at these on the stoves and it makes no sense to me. Maybe someone else out there has some idea. But anyhow, both of these, I mean, this guy's in really good shape, but it does not pass fuel. I suspect it's something in the generator. This guy I bought at the International Coleman Collectors Convention last summer, and I was hoping to be able to use it because we were camping for a couple weeks on our way home after that, and I had one working lantern with me because I had to pack lightly with our own camping supplies, and I was hoping to use this as a second lantern on our camping trip, and everything works fine on it as far as I can tell. I had to clean some spider webs out of the air tube, but the pricker needle, the cleaning needle, is broken. So the tip just clogged, or the gas jet clogs up immediately, so I wasn't able to get it running. I kind of got a little bit of flame out of it for a bit and then it clogged up. So this guy, again, I'm not sure, I haven't done anything with it. This, we're just going to clean it up. I considered repainting the collar, but I think I'm going to leave it as it is and just call it patina because the fount is in good shape and it would be pretty much impossible to match them. So I'm going to tear into these. I think mostly I'm going to be working on this one in the videos, but there may be some back and forth. And eventually we're going to have to, at least on this, I suspect it may be the same thing wrong on this too, but we're going to have to modify 220 cleaning needle or tip cleaner to fit in here because of course the ones that came with these are unobtainium now. But a 220 tip cleaner should work. We're just going to have to cut it down and tweak the end of it so it fits in the valve. So let me get you resituated here and we'll start tearing into these. Vent nut. These have a unique vent nut, and our vent, this thing seems to be in pretty good shape. It's got a little nick on here, and we'll see how it cleans up. This does have the original globe, and it seems pretty sturdy. It has no markings on it. It's similar to a 220 globe, but the other one has a 220 globe on it, which is a very snug fit. And these almost have, I think, a taper on it. take out. I'm not sure if I don't think I can actually stick this back on. I might just tape it to the bottom so it doesn't get lost, but this is our model number. So, start with the generator. I'm using an adjustable wrench here because I actually have no idea what all the different fitting sizes in here are, and not really sure what to expect. I did take this one apart as far as the air tubes last summer just to try to get it running, and only to end up with a broken cleaning tip. So, there we go. So this, the cleaning needle is, and the little claw here is the same style as you see on AGMs. This has some kind of packing in there. It might be asbestos, I'm not sure. The spring comes out, but that packing doesn't. It's crimped in here with these divots. And yeah, our cleaning needle is, the actual needle part is completely gone. So we'll set those aside, and the tip on these should come off. Yeah. I think in theory you could probably use a 220 generator, but you'd have to cut it down and reflare the end. Because these are a little bit shorter than a 220 generator actually is. Just like an AGM, we need to take this nut off. That nut kind of holds everything down on top. This is, I think the nut's the same. Okay, so we need to remember the threads start a bit up inside there, so that side needs to go down and put it back together. Now, we can't take the cage off, but we can lift it up, and there is a little screw in here. Looks like it's a flat thread. Hold that out of the way. See if I can do this left-handed. So this is the same idea as an AGM again. I'm just going to unscrew that screw and take it all the way out. And what that does, it unlocks the burner assembly. So now we can just unscrew this. And if you're familiar with the double mantle AGM design from the 2572 on, this should be very familiar. So no, this is not a clone of a Coleman 220. Burner cage aside. Okay. Let's see what we can do to get these burner tubes off. I have a feeling they're going to be tight. Oh, maybe not. There's one, got a screen in here. These should unscrew as well, but with burner tubes and burner caps, if I can get the tubes off, I don't like to force the caps off because these, I don't have a magnet in my hand right now, but these are probably brass, and brass is soft. Even if they're steel, they'll be relatively soft and easy to mar or easy to crush. So This thing is so carboned up, it's hard to tell. But, yeah. I'm going to leave this alone. Maybe when we clean it up, we'll be able to see. But at this point, I don't really need to separate these two. I can get my brushes all the way through and up into the manifold and everything. So rather than scratch the heck out of this thing, I'm going to leave it alone. Our collar just tilts off at this point. I think this may clean up better than it looks. The paint's obviously burned off here. Hard to say, but I think we can polish this up and make it look presentable. Now for our valve, again, you'll notice it looks just like an AGM valve, or at least someone's clone of an AGM valve. So let's see if we can get this tip cleaner assembly off. I'm gonna have to put some heat on that later. So for now, we're gonna take the knob off. Actually, let's loosen this nut first. It's already very loose. And then we'll see if we can get the valve stem out. This looks the same as the stoves. I think that's going to take some heat as well. So, and I bet this bit on the back is going to take some heat as well. So let's do that quickly. And I've already made sure before we play with heat, I want to make sure that the fount is empty and dry. There's no fuel in there. So we're good to go on that. Get the back part of the valve here. This is it's sort of a spring-loaded valve for the air supply for the instant lighting circuit. Just need to loosen this up so that there's graphite packing in there, and we just want to heat it up enough that the graphite packing lets loose. I think it should be enough. See what we can do with the... There we go. The packing comes out, and this is the same as the stoves. They've got weird... Rinnai had some weird packing in these. It's little rings. It's going to be hot, so we're going to have to let everything cool down here for a bit. Okay. There is something captive in there, and it is not budging, and it doesn't feel like graphite. So I can see what's left of the graphite here that's still in there that hasn't come out, and it's not budging. We're completely loose from the threads, and I'm pulling. So yeah, I can see this has the same design as the stove valves, but for whatever reason, it's not coming out, and I'm not going to break anything. So we're just going to put that back together, and we will clean that as careful as we can so we don't foul the graphite. And let's see if our tip cleaner will come off now. That's still pretty stuck on there, so I'm just going to take the valve out as it is, and we will put that in a vise, make it easier. So this whole thing now. All right, put this on its side. That's not bad at all. So, can't get this out. Just gonna have to pull it. There we go. So, this, like I said, this is like an AGM. It's got, I'm assuming this is probably brass, but it's got a screen over the bottom to keep any sediment that collects in the fount out. So let's see if we can get that off. And our fuel pickup is actually, boy, that's kind of messy, but it's soldered into the bottom of the valve. So if you look at it, you can see here's our air intake for the instant light circuit. And then of course this is our fuel intake. So, boy, and that's on there kind of crooked. It looks like someone cross-threaded it. But let's see if we can get this screen off first. I may not put it back on. These things are more trouble than they're worth. Okay. And modern fuel is a lot cleaner than it was back in the day, and you can see, I mean, this thing's so, oh, there, now you, well, for a second you could see it, I brushed it off. There's a tiny little orifice in the middle of that, and that's our fuel pickup. So you can see either this is bent or this is cross-threaded big time. I guess it's a combination. No, it's bent. So, which suggests someone screwed it down into the bottom of the fount too far. But anyhow, we'll clean that up and make sure that orifice is clear. And now let's put this in a vise and see if we can get these two things apart. Let's see if we can get this off first. It seems to be a 10 millimeter. So instead of using the adjustable wrench, which might actually give us a better fit anyways, I'm going to try using this. There we go. For some reason, these tend to, on AGM, any AGM style thing, whether it's this or an ash flash or Unimet, they always seem to get stuck. All right. This looks like it's a 10 millimeter as well. Let's see what we can do. This is, I'll call it the air valve. Okay, and this is something they copied from AGM. And there's actually like a little gasket on here we'll probably need to clean. But this is a spring-loaded plunger. So this comes in contact with the back end of the valve stem. So as you crack it open, it allows fuel and air to flow, but as you open it all the way, it ends up shutting. This guy, the spring pushes this little seal against the back side of the valve opening, and it shuts off the air supply. Okay, let's deal with the fount. We've got our fuel cap. This guy seems to be in good shape. It's still sealing. And we've got our pump. persuasion. No, and we're locked on. That's not going to help. All right, so it's just like a stove pump. Doesn't have an air wire. Still feels pretty stable though. A lot of times when they don't have, or not an air wire, an air stem. Coleman's have an air stem and that gives a lot of stability to the pump. So we've got our leather. There's a spring-loaded washer in there that keeps it from collapsing. I'm going to leave that in place. Got our little backer here, spring, cap, and then the rest of this, as far as I can tell, it doesn't come apart. There's a pin in here that we probably have to drive out in order for us to get this apart. And I don't know, let's see. No, it's really in there. Actually, it looks like there might be 2 pins, so we'll clean this up as it is. Last thing is the check valve, and I'm gonna guess that like the stove, this does not actually have a check valve. It's got a non-return valve, and you can't see down there, but there's a slot on it, so I put my big screwdriver on it, break it loose. Yep, just like the stoves. So, this seems to work all right, but I would like to service it. Okay, so this opens up. It should. Back end unscrews here. And we've got a pip. This one's rubber, and it's definitely got a seat in it or an indented spot, but it looks like it's very soft, so it's in good shape. So I'm going to clean these outer parts. These inner parts I'll leave the way they are, and then we'll put it all back together and make sure there's no... some of them, this has thread sealant on it. It seems like there was one I ran across that actually had a lead washer on there. So when we put this in, we'll want to put some thread sealant on it. And that is it for the first of these. So I think the vent and the globe will get cleaned up in the kitchen. I'm just going to clean this up here with, I think, some Simple Green. I don't want to get water in it because I know it's clean already. I'll probably swish some acetone in there just to make sure there's nothing nasty in there, but it seems to be all right. And the rest of these things we will put into some citric acid. Got our brass parts on the left and our steel and plated parts on the right. You want to keep those separate so they don't end up pickling each other. I've got them boiling in hot water with about a teaspoon of citric acid powder per liter, and 20 to 30 minutes should do it. Actually, I'm kind of surprised at how quickly, come down here, I'm kind of surprised at how quickly this burner cage has cleaned up. It's been in there 5 minutes or so, and all the corrosion that was on it has disappeared. I was going to fill the pot up all the way to cover this, and I turned it over, and the part that had been in the water while I was filling it had already cleaned up pretty nicely, so I don't think I need to fill it all the way. But I'll let this stuff simmer for a while and do some soap and water cleaning on other parts, and we'll come back and clean these, or rinse these with water and scrub them down with some steel wool. Globes and vents are just going to get soap and water, or in this case some Simple Green and water. Sparks are coming out of the citric acid. Let's clean them up with some 4/0 steel wool. Let's polish. Got a firm cotton buffing wheel and some white polishing compound. Just some simple green. I'm going to polish this. So really all I want to do is clean off as much of the loose grime as I can. I think that's what most of this is. Okay, we'll start polishing with this compound. This is automotive compound. It's relatively coarse compared to some of the other options that are out there that we might finish with. But this will get it clean, and I'm hoping it might take off the staining and maybe clean up some of the, it won't clean up rust, but this should improve the appearance. And then we can really polish it. See, it takes that soot staining right off. That's a significant improvement already. All right, next step. Use some mothers. This is a much finer, this is actually a metal polish, but it works great on paint. Some kind of a, I think maybe it had an impact with something that was painted white and it left some white paint on there. That looks great. So let's move on. I am ready to put this back together. I'll start with the Montgomery Ward one. The easiest thing first, I guess. Fuel cap. And let's put our check valve back together. Send this out. Let's see here. The back part. Over here we've got the springy part and our pip. Okay. And that goes in like that. That goes in like that. We tighten that down. Now, this had thread sealant on it. We'll go back in with thread sealant on it. And the easiest thing to do is just to drop it down in there. Because of its size, it seems to be pretty much self-guiding. Take it easy threading it in. Pump. So we've got our pump handle, our cap, spring, backing washer, pump leather, and somewhere here we've got a little nut. here seems nice and soft. That's good. Using some 3-in-1 oil. Anything that's not vegetable oil or vegetable based is fine. It's working, but not very well. All right, our valve. We'll put the tip back on. And I don't know if we'll be able to get the brass mesh on properly or not. I'll give it a try here. I'm gonna have to open this up more, I think. This design is always kind of a pain. And you have to squish it down when it's in the groove at the proper location. Like I said, these are a pain. I think that did it. You gotta push it on and then pinch it together. And yeah, it's the way it was before because this part here wasn't captive. And now this is the part, this is the air, I want to say the air valve. Got a little spring in here. And I'm going to stretch that out just a bit. So what happens is when you crack the valve open, or actually when the valve is closed even, air in the top of the fount can enter through this little hole, and this is what mixes with the fuel when you're lighting it and you only crack the valve open. That prevents it from flooding. That's their version of the instant light. They got this from American Gas Machines. There's a little hole back here, so the air comes up and enters this chamber, which is plugged by this block. and it runs through a little hole that you won't be able to see, and it enters the main fuel chamber that's controlled by the valve stem. The valve stem, when you screw it all the way in, it shuts that off, but this guy here touches the end of the valve stem as well, and when the valve stem is screwed all the way in, it pushes this little plunger back against the spring, and that opens up that little hole so that air can run from here up into the valve. This is why if you light it and forget to open the valve all the way, you'll lose all the pressure in the fountain, because that air will slowly leak out, actually pretty quickly. What happens is once you back the valve stem out by opening it all the way, it takes the pressure off the end of this plunger, and the spring pushes it closed, and it seals that little hole and cuts off the air supply. Now the problem is this had a little rubber seal on it, and that little rubber seal was hard as a rock, and it crumbled to bits. I don't have anything that's quite that size. I was thinking maybe I had an O-ring that would fit over this, and that's what I'm going to do, but I don't have an O-ring that's quite that size. I don't like this design. The AGM version of it, this is tapered, and so the taper gets pushed into the hole and it seals that way. So the smallest O-ring I've got, and that's fuel resistant, is for, I've got these for Canadian Easy Lights. I'm just going to put that on there. It's loose, but this, and it's a little bit thicker than the original, but not by much. So this should seal around that opening, and I think we'll be good. And now we'll put the valve in, and proper clocking, I went back and checked. Valve sticks out this way with the fuel cap on the left. Be careful putting that in, sometimes you'll just tear that brass screen right off. Halfway in between. Yeah, I think that's it. Tip cleaner and eccentric block. So we've got the claw up here, notch down here, so we'll drop that guy down in there, watch it disappear. And this looked like maybe it had some kind of a gasket on there. It's hard to say, but I'm going to put some thread sealant on it just to be safe. The AGM version does not use thread sealant. Oops. We'll fish our eccentric block back out. Want is to not drop this like I did. Okay, I can feel it. Okay, it's got it. What you want to do is as you screw it in, you'll see the eccentric block, that little claw goes up and down. And while we've got everything off here, let's deal with our valve, because I did take the bushing out. And that is, oh, that goes in the pump. This goes on that way. there's any, we didn't have any of the packing that came out there. So we'll need to take our pump out yet again one more time. Oh, too tight. Actually, it's already unscrewed, that's why. That feels pretty good. Let's see if we can, that still feels good. That's a little too much. When I tighten the jam nut, just to the point where you start getting too much resistance on the valve stem. So I've tried to clean the blue splatter off here. It's quite a bit better, but these are difficult to clean because you don't want to remove the lettering. Got a little washer and an acorn nut. Now I'm debating, this is our generator, and I kind of figured out what happened, I think. We need to modify one of these 220. So this is our old cleaning needle, and you can see it's that much shorter. So we need to, and this is notched so it fits. Which side is it? So it fits into this claw. Boy, like so. And actually, we may be able to modify the Coleman one to do the same, because they do appear to be the same diameter or very close. Normally what you see on these is the hook here is snipped off, and the problem is it's hollow. So I think I'll do it the way you normally see them modified, and what I'll do is I'll mark this. This is where the claw sits. And so what I need to do is bend this, and then we snip off or grind down the excess, because this will, if you do it right, you can grind it down a little bit and flatten it, but this will fit into the claw. So I'm thinking it would be good to do this before I put everything back together, just so we can make sure it's working properly. What I've noticed in comparing this to a 220 generator is that these are quite a bit thinner, and it looks like the spring is pinched in here. There appears to be some kind, at one point I should say, there was some kind of packing, kind of like the cardboard tube in a Coleman, but I'm not sure what it was, up in the top here. And it's crimped in, and the spring is crimped in, and so this is the spring from this one. I'm sorry, no, it's not. This is the spring, and you can see that someone pulled it out, and it got a little bit mangled, and I think that's because they had to free it from that crimping. So I'm kind of debating about using this old 220 spring instead that will sit up here higher. That cardboard tube and the spring keep the needle centered so that it doesn't get off centered and then bang into the tip at the top and crumple the needle. In this case, there's no cardboard tube because the spring is pretty much the right size to keep it centered. I actually kind of like the 220 spring better in terms of the feel of it, but I think the original one is probably all right. So let's actually do this modification here first. We'll have to take the generator off to put everything back on. But the first thing I'm going to have to do is mark this, and then we'll have to do some bending and some grinding, and hopefully it goes okay. So what I'm going to do is put these, I'm assuming the spring is the same length, and then I'm going to mark this where the claw should be hitting it. Yeah, that's about right. And then I'm going to hold this with some pliers and hope this works. Just going to pinch this down. Let's see if we've got the length right. Yeah, that's bent right where it should be. And the trick now, make sure I'm still need to bend it just a little bit more to make it square. Okay. Now I'm just going to snip this. Okay, you would think that would be enough. I think I'm going to have to snip that just a little bit more, but I will wait just a bit here. Because in order for this to fit in the claw, this is a slightly wider diameter. Doesn't quite fit in, so what I need to do is go over to the bench grinder and just slightly grind down the back of this, just a tiny little bit. All right, I know you probably can't see what I've done. I've just narrowed things down a little bit. If you're a machinist, please don't laugh at me. I should. I may have to pinch it in. But there we go. Okay, now getting it so that the needle lines up with that opening with the tip. And it's doing so. Now the question is, it seems a little short, so hopefully there's our jam nut. And of course, I'm doing this because just like a 220, when we do this for real, this is going to be blind. I can't really see it coming up and down, maybe just a bit. So take this off. If it works this way, hey, we didn't bend the needle, so that's good. So I think we're all good. So we'll take this off for now. I can put my glasses back on, and we can finish putting things back together. So, collar. And my only concern is that the needle may not be sticking up far enough. It's possible that the original, these are, I am a little bit short. Well, actually it should be sitting, no. We'll pray that that's long enough. The next one I know to make it a bit longer just because of the bend. So now, this guy on, and we'll put get this screw started before get it started now. It'll be easier later. Threads. There we go. That seems to be lined up. This little screw. And this went with this side down. Now, back to the generator. Got our spring. Turn it up. Feed it up inside and, oh, forgot our nut. Anything binding? Needle as it is binding is it's hard to feel that. So let's quickly fix our pump. I left out the little spacer. I'm not sure if that would have anything to do with why it's not pumping a whole lot of air in. Okay, before I go any further, let's see if we can check the generator and make sure it's working. So I'm going to shut this off, and I'll be back in a moment after I put some gasoline in here. Pump this up. All right, hopefully that's enough. We'll go ahead. That's no pressure at all. Okay. Okay, sorry I didn't film everything. I've been sitting here for the last hour trying to figure out why this won't build up enough pressure. I can get enough pressure in it so that fuel bubbles out of here, but still it enters through the fuel cap, and it doesn't even really hiss. You can hear the pressure release. And the non-return valve just doesn't feel right. Normally with a non-return valve, this guy is a really smooth pump motion, which is weird. But normally you push it down, and then there's a final, like a little bit where the NRV opens, and then all the air goes in. So it's not a smooth pump stroke like with a Coleman. So I started wondering if I thought maybe it was an issue with the pip and the spring, and if I'd stretched it out or something and there was too much pressure behind the pip. That wasn't it, and so I actually just tried blowing, finally, out of exasperation. I don't know why I didn't try it earlier, but I blew into the pump tube, and I noticed it was difficult to blow air in. I could blow air in, but there was like back pressure. So I just filled the pump, I laid it on its side, I filled the pump tube with some Coleman fuel, put the pump in, and then pushed it down really hard, and I did that 3 times, and now the pump feels like it should. So see how it goes in, and then at the end, that's when the NRV is opening up. So now we're getting pressure built up inside here. Okay, so we'll close that down, and I'm going to let this cool off because I preheated with the propane torch and lit it, and it still doesn't seem to be running quite the same as the other one, but I think we're ready now, but it needs to cool off. So while we wait for that to cool off, I'm going to use these Peerless 2CHGs. They're basically the equivalent of a Coleman number 21. They're better quality than the current Coleman number 21s you can buy. Go. I don't want to waste mantles on it, so I think I may try some, again, some throwaway mantles. Just a minute. Yeah, I don't think my cleaning needle is doing anything. The good news is that the generator, since it doesn't have any paper or asbestos or anything in it, and the fuel system's clean, I don't think we have to worry about any debris. So, add some pressure here. So, yeah, that's, it's running. Some of that may be the super cheap crummy mantles. I'm actually hesitant to put some more expensive Petromax ones on there just because I don't know if it'll be worth it, but I guess I probably should. Okay, these guys back here seem to be brightening up some. It almost looks like it needs more air, but I know that's not an issue on this one. The pressure's good, so yeah, I'm not sure. It is brightening up though. It's getting better the longer it runs. So let's hope the same for this. I think it was going all right with those cheap 500 candle power mantles, and it's hard to tell how much it's going to light those up. So see how this will do now. I'll use a match this time. Oh, that lit up. Well, it's looking hopeful. Again, these Petromax mantles take a while to brighten up. Though, I don't know about that. Okay, well, what's up? I'm sure they're supposed to run better than this, but here we are with the lights out, and I'm pretty unimpressed, and I'm at a complete loss as to why they're not brighter than they are. This is my Rinnai video. You've seen the guts. You've seen how to take it apart and put it back together. You've seen how I cleaned absolutely everything. So no, there's no air blockages. The generators are clean. We've got I can see it flicker when I activate the new tip cleaner. So yeah, I don't know, but I'm about ready to be done with Rinnai at this point, so I think this is as good as we're going to get. So I hope you enjoyed the video. This one's not really a win, probably not really a complete fail, but yeah, I was hoping for better. And take two. So I went to bed last night. I was done with these guys. and pretty well exasperated. Like you saw, everything was clean. It wasn't an airflow issue. I couldn't see that it was a fuel flow issue per se. The valve system was clean and everything. And I noticed after letting them sit for a while that the blue one, the Montgomery Ward one, actually kind of fizzled out, which told me it was losing pressure somehow. But it wasn't the fuel cap. So I spent a couple hours this morning revisiting things and kind of logically working my way through. I figured out that on the Canadian market one, the pump leather, there's that little, I don't know if, I didn't take it out so you couldn't see it very easily or at all, but that little, it's a brass or copper spring-loaded deal inside the leather pump cup, keeps it from collapsing on itself. And I started thinking about this last night. The non-return valves are different than a check valve, and they can be kind of a pain because if the spring isn't tensioned just right, it can be difficult to pump pressure in. Sometimes it won't let the pressure in at all. So I got to thinking about that, and I looked at the pump cup. I took it out and realized that, you know, I think I could splay these springy parts out some, and that fixed the problem. I'm now able to get enough pressure into the Canadian market one, and that fixed the issue. So it wasn't so much a fuel system issue as a pressure issue. And that got me thinking about the Montgomery Ward one, the American one. I was curious why it was losing pressure, and I started thinking about that little air valve that's in the back, and wondering if somehow it could have something to do with that. The pump cap was good, I verified that, so I decided to also check the pump on this one, and that was of course the first thing I did, was check the pump. And I also did the same deal with it. I splayed out those spring-loaded deals a bit, and that seemed to help. But I noticed the feel wasn't right with the check valve. So I actually took that check valve out, and I have a parts Eaton stove that I picked up at some point this past year for its legs, and I stole its check valve, which is the same, and I put that check valve in here, and that seems to have solved that problem. The pressure loss issue I figured out fairly quickly as well when I saw a little O-ring sitting here on the table, and I thought that O-ring is supposed to be inside one of those lanterns. That's what I used to replace the rubber seal on that plunger for the air valve. So I took everything apart and took that air valve apart, and sure enough, somehow that O-ring must have fallen off the plunger as I was putting it in, and I didn't notice it didn't go in. So yeah, these are not like the AGM version where that little plunger is cone-shaped and wedges itself into the opening in the valve. These actually need a rubber seal on them. I wasn't 100% sure about that, but I think that crud, the mess, the goop that's all in the back side of the valve where that plunger goes is what's left of the degraded rubber seal that was on there at one point in time. So I put that O-ring back in, and then I took it back out because I decided, you know, I'm just going to see, the O-ring's a little bit on the thick side. Everything seemed to be working on the Canadian market one, but I decided to experiment, so I cut a little piece of Viton from a cap gasket, a replacement cap gasket, and put that on the plunger instead. It sits still more than the O-ring does, but it's working just as well. So if you happen to work on these and need to replace that, those are your options. I mean, the plunger holds the O-ring in place, so it's not going to go anywhere. So that stopped the air loss while it was running, and yeah, fixing the pump cups, fixing that little spring-loaded deal that's in there, that solved the pressure problem, because you have to have enough pressure when you're pushing the pump handle down. You have to have enough pressure built up behind that pump cup to open the non-return valve and to push that spring back, and neither one was doing it. They would do it up to a point, but I would guess I was probably only getting about half or two-thirds of the pressure I needed inside the fount. So splaying those out, putting some pressure against the walls of the pump tube with the pump cup is now allowing me to get the proper pressure in. So sometimes you just need to sleep on stuff. So sorry I didn't show all of that stuff. The other thing I did, the generator on this guy was working fine, but I was concerned. See, now our tip cleaner is working properly. It wasn't really doing anything before. Since there's no packing inside the generator, I don't think there's much carbon to throw, so it was working all right. But I had one extra 220 needle, cleaning needle assembly left over, so I had a bunch of a bag of parts from the ICCC convention last summer, and so there are a bunch of old generators in there, so I remade the needle for this guy, and it's working properly now, although that was not the problem. So anyhow, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it's not too disjointed. I'll have to edit it. I haven't started that yet. But yeah, if you've got experience with these, feel free to post in the comments. It was more fun to work on this morning once stuff started to click in my head and I was thinking through everything logically and what might be wrong, and kind of coming up with a mental flow chart. So anyhow, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.